Hello, my writing friends. For today's writing lesson, we are going to focus on looking at what other authors do. Now, before we get started, I want to show you what you should have already. So far we've done 2 days of informational text writing this week, and I asked you to come up with 2 different topics. So far you've written probably 1 page about one thing and another page about another thing. So you'll have 2 pages that kind of look like this. I'll read you my example. I wrote, bats are mammals. They are nocturnal. They use echolocation. Their babies are called pups. Bats eat bugs. Now, you might remember when I did the lesson about super topics yesterday, those are the things that I named that I know about bats. And I know this is a super topic for me because, number one, I think bats are really cool, but also I was able to name 5 things about bats. And I just kind of wrote them on this page, just kind of saying, this is what I know about bats, right? But you also know that our goal is to turn pages into a book. So we're going to talk about how our pages that we have are going to change today. I told you that we're not going to be just using these pages the way they are. You have to write them in pencil so that we can erase and move and use them to build a book out of. So you probably have 2 pages like this that are 1 page about one topic, 1 page about another topic. And today we find out how we will use those facts to start building a book. Okay, so I have a book about bats that has actually been published. Of course, I didn't write this book. I did read this book though, and that is one way I was able to get information for the facts that I just wrote on that piece of paper. This is a published book, a nonfiction book, where I know I can find information about bats. One of the things that nonfiction books have a lot of the time is a table of contents. And we'll talk about adding tables of contents into our books during another lesson. But just to point out, this table of contents is showing me what I can learn on the different pages in this book. So for example, if I want to know about bat bodies, like what are their bodies like, I can turn to page 12. Or if I want to know about baby bats, I can turn to page 22. Let's use that first example of page 12 to find out what I can see there. Okay, so when I turn to page 12, I see that it says bat bodies at the top. That shows me that that's exactly what I will find when I read these 2 pages. I will find out about bat bodies. So that must mean that any other information about bats, like what they eat or where they sleep or what their babies are like, that's all going to be on other pages. This book and all nonfiction books are usually very organized and they talk about one topic at a time. So here we're going to find out about bat bodies. Scientists call bats Chiroptera, a Greek name that means hand wing. That's because bats have 4 fingers and a thumb, just like us. A thin layer of skin connects the fingers. This forms a wing. Bats also have a sensitive nose and big ears. Their big ears help some bats see with sound. And then on the picture, it's got labels like it shows the big ears and the sensitive nose and the 4 finger bones that they have there at the bottom of their wing. So just like the table of contents told me, when I get to page 12, I'm going to be reading about bat bodies and nothing else. The other example I gave you was baby bats. When I turn to page 22, I'm going to read about baby bats and nothing else. I know I'm going to read about baby bats because it tells me right here, baby bats. Okay, so if I read the words over here, I'm going to learn more about baby bats. I'm pointing this out to you in a published book because that's going to be our goal for the books that we're making. You might remember in my All About Polar Bears book that I also have a table of contents, which again, please don't make your own tables of contents. We will be making those. We just haven't quite gotten there yet. But when you read my page number 1, you learn about skin and fur of the polar bears. So when I turn to page 1, which I marked down here at the bottom, I'm writing and reading about skin and fur, polar bear skin and fur. Not what their babies look like, not what they eat, just their skin and fur. And I wrote as many sentences as I could about polar bear skin and fur. So when I read it, it says, polar bears have black skin under their white fur. Their fur is actually hollow, but it looks white on their bodies. So I tried to focus all of my information on this page to just be about that one idea, which was the skin and fur of a polar bear. Now, here comes the challenge. Like I said, you probably have 2 pages that you wrote this week. One about one topic, one about another topic. They can be similar topics as long as they're slightly different because you're going to be turning both of those pages into different books. You're going to choose one of your pages. So let's say I have a page about strawberries and a page about bats. Now it's time for me to figure out which one I want to focus on first. I'm going to choose bats because that's the example that I have right here. Now I'm going to go through what I wrote about bats and try to figure out how many different topics I have written on that page. And when I do that, I'm going to put a little number by that topic. Okay, so I went through and decided which sentences on this page go together and talk about the same topic and which sentences are different. And I put numbers by that. So here's what that looks like. My first sentence says, bats are mammals, and I put a number 1 by that sentence. That shows that that is a topic all by itself. Bats are mammals. Okay. The next sentence says, they are nocturnal. I put a little 2 right there. Then I went through and tried to decide, do any of my other sentences also talk about bats being nocturnal? Let's see. They use echolocation. No, that doesn't really have anything to do with them being nocturnal. Their babies are called pups. No, that doesn't really have anything to do with them being nocturnal. Bats eat bugs. No, that doesn't really have anything to do with them being nocturnal. So that's the only number 2 on my page. Then I went to my third sentence. They use echolocation, and I put a little 3 right here. Now I'm going to try to decide if any of the other sentences on this paper talk about echolocation. So their babies are called pups. That doesn't have anything to do with echolocation. Bats eat bugs. Oh, that does have to do with echolocation. That's how they find the bugs, right? So I put a 3 there to show that these 2 sentences will go together on a page when I start a page about them using echolocation. This sentence that has a 3 by it and this sentence with a 3 by it will both go together. I also decided that when I wrote bats are mammals, that goes along with the sentence their babies are called pups. So I put a number 1 by both of those because one of the ways that we know an animal is a mammal is that they give birth to live babies as opposed to like having an egg like a chicken. A mammal has a live baby and the bat's babies are called pups. So I decided that those 2 sentences go together and that I could put a 1 by both of those sentences. So on this original page of writing that I did, I marked it up a little bit. I'm going to move some things around. I might never include this in my actual book, and that's okay. But I discovered that I have 3 different topics on this page. the fact that bats are mammals and they have babies that are called pups, the fact that they're nocturnal, and the fact that they use echolocation to find the bugs that they eat. So I wrote 5 sentences on this page, but they're not necessarily 5 different things. I actually only wrote about 3 different topics on this page. Now my goal is to break it down even further so that just like in this example book that I showed you that's really been published, I'm going to focus on one topic per page. So like we said, on this page, when you come read here, you're not reading about anything other than bat bodies, and it tells us that right up here. That means I have to take one of these topics that I wrote down on this page and turn it into an entire page of writing. I decided to use the second sentence here that says they are nocturnal. I'm going to take that sentence and turn it into an entire page all by itself. Here's what that looks like. I wrote this page about bats being nocturnal. That means all the sentences on this page are going to talk about them being nocturnal. So it says bats are nocturnal. That means they are active at night. They leave their homes at dusk and come back at dawn. They spend their time flying in the night and eating. I didn't talk about what their houses look like. I didn't talk about what their babies look like. I just talked about them being nocturnal on this page. So that's our whole goal today, is to focus our writing so that we're only writing about one thing at a time on each page. So your job today is, first of all, decide what are you going to write about. You have 2 pages. Choose one that you would like to focus on first. I chose bats. Second, your job is to go through that page and figure out how many topics do you actually have on that page. Go ahead and write some numbers on the page, just like I did. Try to figure out how many different things did you actually write down. And if we can group some of them together, let's do that so we can group them into a more robust page later on. Your third job is to take one of those facts from your first page and turn it into an entire page of writing. This might take you longer than one writing session, and that's fine. I just want you to know that that's our goal eventually. Eventually, I'm going to have 5 pages like this that I can put together, and that's what's going to make a book, and that will be my informational book about bats. Then I'll add my table of contents and my cover page and all of that fun stuff. These books take a really long time. Okay, let's think about how we can focus our writing so that we have one idea on each page. Let me know on Seesaw if you have any questions about this. I will see you tomorrow for another writing lesson.